Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Fly Tying Lessons. This is now the series 201. Just like in college, the higher the number, the more advanced things are. 101 was talking about the basics, what the tools are, what they're used for, and the 201 series are going to be some of my favorite flies. I live in Wisconsin and fish on the Milwaukee River quite a bit, and I came up with this pattern of woolly bugger, which I call a candy cane. And if you take a look at it, it looks just like it. Some people call it a peppermint stick, friends of mine, etc. It doesn't really matter. But I've never seen a pattern quite like this, and I decided to give it a try. And this, in different sizes, has caught everything from crappie, perch, all the way up to smallmouth bass, and I think in a bigger version might be really good for northern pike as well. But a really good fly pattern, and I hope you enjoy tying it. So how we get started here is, first off, I have a hook, and it is an Umpqua hook, U103. In this particular size is a size 8. I usually use size 8s when I have a bead head, and a size 10, a little bit smaller, when I don't. For thread, we are using uni thread, and we are using a size 6/6/0. And finally, the bead is just a little red bead that you can get at just about any fly tying store. It's not a plastic bead; it's a red metal bead. So what I've done again is I've started with the thread here. So we're going to just kind of work our way down to about, I usually pull down, as you can see, right to the barb of the hook, and then I'll go back and forth a few times. And the reason why we want to do that is when we take our marabou and we put it on as a tail, if it is on a bare hook, a lot of times that marabou can spin around and sometimes even pull out, and we spent all this time and effort making a nice fly. We want it to last a while. So I just go back and forth a few times, and I'll leave her right about there, right about to the point of the hook. Now for the back end of this fly, we're using white marabou quills, and we'll go ahead and we'll pull one out. Usually they come strung, as you can see, in a big old tuft like such. And now I'll just grab one of them, pull it off. And I like to, some people want to use this multiple times. I'm of the belief where, use the best stuff on here, and that's the tail. And I like to take it and make it about the length of the entire hook, and then just set it back here on the towards the back of the hook, and then real lightly go over once. You can see there's a loop in the line, and pull down twice, 3 times, 4 times or so. Now that we've got enough here, we can take our scissors, and this is a medium size scissors, sort of my general purpose one. Cut the marabou off. I leave a little bit on the shank. Now this I throw away. There's not much else that I would like to do with it. Now there's people who say you can use it again if you take it and take the cut end and literally take and pull off, and then keep working at that, and that'll make a nice new substitute. I just don't like doing that. The extra marabou here I'll just take and I'll do some more wraps on just to secure it down. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of flash. I like using 2 different kinds of flash on these patterns. This one here is holographic flash. Sometimes you can use like Flashaboo, etc., but it's more flat. And then I actually like this right here. This is crystal flash, or some people call it crinkle flash, etc. And you can see there's a bit more structure, a little bit more depth to it. And then I use this pearlescent white stuff, which I really like. Extremely fine. I don't know if that shows up very well, but you can see it kind of changes colors and it's rather iridescent. It's called DNA flash, and this color is in pearl white. So that's what we'll start on first. We'll go ahead and we'll take a few strands of that. We'll cut it off. And what I'm going to do, and it's going to be hard for me to show you, but because of the rotary vise, I'm going to just kind of set it straight up. Normally I tie it facing me. It doesn't do much good when I'm trying to help you guys out. So I'll just lay it on the top, just about to the end of the marabou feathers, and typically just go over once, maybe twice. It's about all you need to hold it. And I'm still holding onto the bobbin here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move around and down kind of over in one motion, and I'll capture that other side like so. So now I've got about 3 or 4 wraps on there. That's really not going to go anywhere. Take my scissors, and I don't like cutting it perfectly straight by pulling it here, and because you're going to get a perfectly straight cut. It doesn't look very natural, I don't think. So I like to take and kind of push back and kind of bundle, open this up a little bit and just kind of cut, pull, move, cut a little bit. And as you can see now, it's a lot less uniform, and thus it looks, I think, more natural. When you're tying anything where you're palmering up to the front of the fly, what you want to do is just remember the general rule. If you put it down first, it goes up last. If you put it down last, that's the first thing that you're going to want to palmer. So first thing we're going to do is put on a wire. It is a ultra wire, UTC ultra wire. I'm actually using the medium, which is a pretty strong, pretty thick wire. Normally you wouldn't use a wire this thick for a fly like this. However, I want this to show up. I don't want it to be hidden. Another thing I do is I'll put it on a special wire bobbin. You can just, for whatever purpose you want, you can pull off a section here and then just cut it if you want to. And for this demonstration, I'll do that. One of the things you want to remember is this will have a tendency to want to pull out. So what I do is I take my finger here and I just make a tiny little hook, kind of bend into it, as you can see. And again, I'll turn this so you guys can see it. Now I'm going to lay it down. You can see the point is kind of up, and I'll lock that in. And if you were to imagine being able to fold this over here, it might be hard for you to see, that's why I say imagine it. I now sort of made a hook with that, and now I'm going to literally lock it down. So this wire will probably break before it actually pulls out now. So now that's good. Now that's stuck there, and we're going to set this to the side. The next item that we run up is a hackle. Now, what we're using here is Bugger Hackle Pack, it's called, or Bugger Hackle. You can get it from Winning Farms, and you get it, Woolly Bugger Packs, they're called. Usually you get 2 pieces like this, and lately I've been finding that they supply kind of a bigger, fluffier one, as well as some thinner ones as well. Technically speaking, we should be using one about like this for this particular fly, because what you want to do, for the most part, is you don't want the barbs to go much beyond the hook point. That's more traditional and that's more acceptable. You'll see that a lot if you're going to buy some in the store. I personally don't like that too much because I want to go with a bigger one, almost to a schlappen size. And if you're familiar with schlappen, that's just basically a different style hackle. It has much longer, I think it's called barbules is the technical term. But what I want is, I want this fly, instead of just sink to the bottom, I want it literally to suspend in the water column and kind of float gently. And that gives the fish a chance to see it, I think, better, and then just pounce on it. And I mean they pounce on it. So what I like to do is, I like to tie the hackle in from the tip and then work it forward. And if you think about it, as you can see, as I'm pulling this stuff forward here, it might be easier to see here, the tip has real short pieces on it, and the farther back you get, the longer they get. So when we roll it back, it'll start out real nice and tiny here and work its way to this big umbrella in the front. So to tie that in, I like to take the tip, peel back a little bit here. You don't have to be too perfect with it. And again, we'll lay this on top so you can see it. And then just kind of roll it over. A couple of turns, and you can take and cut that off if you wish, or you can tear it off. I don't necessarily want to tear it off right now. I might screw it up. So now we have the wire, and we have the hackle feather laying there. The third thing we're going to use is chenille. And I like this particular kind from, in this case it's Bass Pro Shops, White River Woolly Bugger Chenille in white. And it's kind of hard, and it's medium size, by the way. You can get it in small. And it's kind of hard to tell in that package here, but you might be able to see as I rotate, it actually has some real nice sparkle to it. Some of the chenilles I've seen, I don't get that sparkle effect, and I don't like it as much. So when you're tying in the chenille, what you want to be careful of is, you can see that it's full here, and if we were to tie that down and then wrap it around, we'd have a nice bulge here, and I want this to be uniform. So what we're going to do is we're going to take and pinch and pull off. So all you have to do is pinch and pull off, and you'll see that we're down to a bare thread now. So I'm going to go ahead and tie that in. I'll tie that into the top here. And that's a good portion of this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move the thread to the front, and we're going to tie a half hitch. And why we're going to tie a half hitch will be apparent in just a moment. To do that, you pull the thread out, take your finger, push it down, kind of come up and over, just flip your hand around, and now you've got a nice half hitch. It doesn't have to be real perfect here again. And you'll see why in a second, because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the bobbin holder from the vise over into position here. And I'm just going to let the thread hang down. The reason why we're doing it this way is, for this demonstration, I'm going to actually use the rotating vise feature and show you how that works. So I'm holding this down, and I'm going to turn the head of the vise, and that will effectively palmer, it's called, or wrap this over. If you did not have that locked down with a half hitch, that thread, it would literally come undone as you're rotating. So now we're going to just take this and kind of work our way over and keep it kind of close and tight. You can see we're building up a nice body here. And now that we're about here, nice and close to the head, I'll go ahead and grab the thread, move the bobbin rest out of the way. And what you want to do is you want to go up and move whatever material you have over. So now what I've done, and then down. And what I've done is I've just pinched it in there. So I usually like to do that 1, 2, at least 3 times, sometimes 4. And now I've just, because I'll move it to the front too, and I'll catch some of these other fibers. Now, I've made the mistake more times than I can count, quite literally, of grabbing my scissors and cutting down here. And I can't tell you how many times this bobbin has dropped off because I've actually cut the thread. So now I've learned my lesson. So I pull whatever material it is, in this case chenille or feather or wire or whatever, and then make my cut on the top. So just a couple more wraps to tidy that up a little bit. The next thing is going to be the feather. So I won't bother with a half hitch or anything like that in this case. What you want to do is you want to just wrap a real nice even pattern all the way up. Now you can use the hackle plier, which we talked about in the past, and that would be to pinch the hackle and then rotate it around. I don't use the hackle pliers on big flies like this simply because there's plenty for me to grab, but you could use it if you want to. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to make nice neat wraps, try to space it fairly evenly all the way up the fly. And I like to put a little bit more feather on here than what you may get in a commercial bought fly, but again, that's just what I like to do. So as you can see, we've started here. Now it's actually getting taller and taller and taller as we move forward, and that's the exact look I want. So again, I've got the feather here. I'm going to come up and over and cross, and then just come back down. Now I've locked that in. It may be impossible to see that, but it's right there. I've actually locked the stem in. So now I'm going to go forward a couple more times, go to the back, and what I like to do is actually cut this a little long. It's going to be very difficult to see. Fold it back with my thumb and then wrap it back down again, just to lock this feather in a little bit better. So again, just kind of fold it back down and do a couple more wraps. So now we're pretty good. You can see it's nice and fluffy as we turn it, and we're almost done. The next and final step here is to take the wire and wrap it forward. Now, don't be so gung-ho on this and wrap it and pinch everything down. What we want to do is we want to keep this fibers up and fluffy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of wiggle this back and forth, as you see. And as I do that, it allows the hackle to kind of get out of the way as I move forward up the shank of the hook here. And I'm not putting a ton of pressure. Oops, sorry about that. I just see that I actually got the hook. I'm not putting a ton of pressure on here because I don't want to bury the wire in the chenille. I literally want that to just kind of ride up above it. And also it helps too when I go back and check it out. If I have to pluck any of these feathers out from underneath the wire, it's much easier to do. Alright, so now we've got this thing nicely wrapped all the way to the front. And what I like to do is go around a couple times. Now, if this were thinner wire, you could literally take and pull, and it will break. I'm going to attempt it here, and I don't think I'm going to be able to do it too easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a wire cutter, side cutter, whatever you want to call it, and I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to snip this. I'm going to flatten it down with my thumb. And yes, I'm looking over the top of my glasses because I'm old and these are bifocals and I can't see diddly anymore. So now all I'm going to do is finish off by going over about 6-8 times. And I'm going to whip finish now. And if you remember how to whip finish, this is your whip finishing tool. It's available in a couple different sizes and actually different configurations. I like this one because I grew up with this and it's so easy for me to use. Take the hook, the tiny hook of the whip finisher, drop it down on your thread as the bobbin is facing you. Move around this other U, if you want to call it. Now we have an upside down 4. If you take a look, so now we're doing it right. Now, if we've come over the top and we've done it right, we should be able to come up here and just flip around 2, 3, 4, 5 times. I like to go. Unhook it. Make sure you're not pinching any of the hackle barbs down. Pull it straight. Oops. Pull it straight. Trim it. And now, since I'm looking here, I can see that there's a couple of feathers here that were kind of trapped by the wire, and I don't want that. So I want to take and I want to go through with this dubbing needle and just kind of take it and just kind of flop up some of the feathers to make sure that we're all in good shape. So that's that. So this is a candy cane that is done with just one color of flash. You can actually combine them if you wish. In this particular pattern, I put 2 different kinds of flash on. You could do red and white. You could do red. You don't have to do any. But I do like some of the flash on here. Again, it gives it a little extra sparkle, almost like the side of a minnow or something that's in the water. And just finish it off with a couple of drops of head cement here. Let it dry, and you're ready to go fishing. Good luck, everybody. Thank you.